Man finds paralyzed young woman alone at home. What he does next shocks everyone. Michael Crawford took a deep breath before knocking on the door for the third time that morning. It was his toughest job in 15 years as a debt collector, and he knew the Wilson family couldn't pay the nearly $20,000 debt that had been piling up for months. When he finally managed to open the unlocked door, what he saw left him speechless. A young woman, apparently in her early 20s, lay on the living room floor dressed in simple clothes with tears streaming down her face. She couldn't move. "Please don't hurt me," the girl whispered, her voice trembling. "I can't get up. My mother left yesterday morning to try and get some money and she hasn't come back yet." Michael felt a tightness in his chest. In all his years collecting debts, he'd never encountered a situation like this. The young woman was shaking, not from cold but from fear mixed with something he couldn't quite place. "What's your name?" he asked, tucking away his folder of documents. "Emily Wilson. I know who you are. My mother said the debt collector would come today, but I can't do anything, literally can't." She tried to move her legs, but they remained lifeless. The man crouched beside her, taking in the scene. The house was modest but clean. Photos on the wall showed a happy family. An older woman, the girl on the floor, and a man who no longer appeared in the more recent pictures. "What happened to you?" Michael asked, surprising himself with his own gentleness. "I have a neurological condition. When I get too stressed or scared, my body just locks up. I can't move for hours, sometimes days. The doctors call it psychosomatic paralysis," Emily explained, wiping her tears with her sleeve. Michael had never heard of anything like it. He glanced around the small house and noticed details that intrigued him. An old piano in the corner, sheet music scattered on a side table, and a stack of what looked like unpaid bills. "Where did your mother go?" he asked, sitting on the floor beside her. "She's working as a cleaner in 3 different houses. She said she wouldn't come back until she got at least part of the money we owe, but I know it's impossible. The debt just keeps growing." Emily closed her eyes, looking exhausted. Michael Crawford wasn't known for his compassion. 15 years in the business had hardened his heart. He'd seen families fall apart over debt, witnessed arguments, tears, and despair. He'd always managed to keep the professional detachment needed to do his job. But something about this young woman touched him differently. Maybe it was her age, close to his own daughters. Maybe it was the way she spoke, polite yet resigned. Or maybe it was the piano in the room, reminding him of his own daughter's passion for music. "How long have you been like this?" Michael asked. "Since yesterday morning. When Mom left, I tried to get up to do something, to help somehow. But the anxiety was so bad I just locked up completely. I couldn't even use the bathroom properly." She blushed with shame. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now back to the story. Michael stood and went to the kitchen. He found a bottle of water and returned to help Emily drink. She could move her arms with difficulty, but her legs remained completely still. "Do you need any medication?" he asked. "I do, but we ran out 3 days ago. Mom couldn't afford more, it's too expensive," Emily sighed. "Without the medicine, the episodes take longer to pass. How much does it cost?" $250 a box. "It has to be taken every month," she said with bitterness in her voice. Michael Crawford quickly did the math. It was nearly half the minimum wage just for one medication. He began to understand the Wilson family's situation better. He looked at the photos on the wall again and noticed a man in some of them, but he was absent from the more recent ones. "Where's your father?" The question slipped out before he could stop himself. Emily Wilson's face twisted in pain. "He left when he found out about my condition, said he wouldn't spend his life supporting a useless daughter. That was 2 years ago," she whispered, as if the words hurt to say. Michael's heart tightened even more. He thought of his own daughter, Olivia, 24 years old, who was finishing music school. He couldn't imagine abandoning her in a situation like that. "What about work? Do you have a job?" he asked. "I used to. I was a music teacher at a private school. I also gave private lessons, but as my episodes became more frequent, I couldn't keep working. Who would hire someone who could suddenly become paralyzed?" Emily tried to move her legs again but failed. Frustration was clear on her face. "Can you make a living teaching music?" Michael asked, intrigued. "It helped a lot. I made about $1,500 a month. It wasn't much, but it helped Mom with the bills. Now she has to do everything alone." A tear rolled down the young woman's cheek. Michael was silent for a few minutes, processing everything. He picked up the folder he'd set aside and looked at the debt documents. The situation was truly dire. Besides the $20,000 in arrears, there were accumulated interest fees driving the amount up each month. "How did this debt start?" he asked. Emily hesitated before answering. "My father borrowed money to start a small business, a mechanic's shop, but he didn't understand anything about running it. It went under in just a few months. When he found out about my illness, he just left. He abandoned us with the debt," she said resentfully. "Did you try negotiating?" "Many times, but the interest is too high. Every month it gets worse. Mom works herself to the bone, but she barely makes enough for rent and food." Emily let out a deep sigh. Michael looked around the house again. It was simple, but there was care in the details. Family photos, well-tended plants, neatly arranged books. This wasn't the home of people who shirked responsibility. He took out his phone and did something he'd never done in 15 years on the job. He called his boss to cancel the rest of his appointments for the day. "Michael, are you sick?" Mr. Blackwell asked on the other end. "No, sir. I just need to handle something here." "I'll be back tomorrow," he said without elaborating. "You never cancel appointments. Is the debt that bad? Want me to send someone more persuasive?" "No," Michael answered too quickly. "I mean, it's not necessary. I'll handle it." Emily had overheard the conversation and looked at him with a mix of fear and curiosity. "You're not leaving?" she asked. "I won't leave you like this. When will your mother be back?" She said she wouldn't come home until she made at least $1,000, but working as a cleaner, even at 3 houses, she only makes about $50 a day. "It'll take a while," Emily calculated silently. Michael stood and explored the house further. In the women's bedroom, he found more collection letters, overdue utility bills, and a drawer with some expired medications. The kitchen had very little food. The situation was worse than he'd thought. He returned to the living room and sat back down beside Emily. "Tell me more about your illness," he said. "How did it start?" "It showed up after my father left. The doctor said it was the trauma, the stress of the whole situation. At first, the episodes were small, lasting just a few hours, but it got worse. The last one lasted 4 days," she said sadly. "And what helps you feel better?" "The medication helps a lot, and staying calm, not worrying. But it's kind of hard not to worry when you owe $20,000 and your mother is working herself to death," she replied with bitter irony. Michael understood this was a situation where one problem created another. The stress of the debt worsened Emily's condition, which kept her from working, which only made their financial struggles worse. "Do you have any other family? Someone who could help?" "We only have an aunt in Nebraska, Mom's sister, but she has her own problems. 3 young kids and a husband who's unemployed." Emily shook her head. Time passed, and Emily began to show signs she could move her legs slightly. Michael noticed and felt hopeful. "Looks like you're improving," he said. "Yes, little by little it comes back, but without the medicine it takes much longer." She managed to bend her knees slightly. Michael made a decision that surprised even himself. He stood up and grabbed his wallet. "Where's the nearest pharmacy?" "There's one on the corner." "But sir, the medicine is really expensive," Emily protested. "What's it called?" he insisted. "Seroquel, 25 milligrams. But I can't accept this. You're here to collect our debt, not to help us," she said, confused. "Maybe that's exactly why I need to help," Michael replied, leaving before she could protest further. At the pharmacy, he bought the medication and a few other basic things he'd noticed were missing in the house. He returned 20 minutes later to find Emily sitting on the couch, still struggling but able to sit upright. "Sir, why are you doing this?" she asked as he handed her the medicine. "I have a daughter your age. I wouldn't be able to sleep knowing I left you like this," he said simply. Emily took the medicine and they kept talking. She told him about her passion for music, the dream she'd had before the illness struck. Michael spoke about Olivia, how proud he was that she was finishing college. "Your daughter is lucky to have a father like you," Emily said. "I don't know if she'd agree. I work too much. We hardly see each other. And my job, it's not exactly something I'm proud of," Michael admitted. "Why did you become a debt collector?" "I needed to support my family. My wife got sick when Olivia was little. We spent a lot on treatments. By the time she recovered, I'd already been in this line of work for years. The money's good, you know, and I just stayed." He paused, thoughtful. "I never stopped to think if I liked it or not." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. They talked for hours. Emily gradually regained movement, and Michael was struck by the young woman's intelligence and sensitivity. She spoke about music with a passion he hadn't seen in years, reminding him of how Olivia lit up when talking about her own dreams. Around 5 in the afternoon, they heard a key in the lock. Emily's mother was home. "Emily, my girl!" Mrs. Margaret's voice echoed through the house. "How are you? Did you eat anything?" When she walked into the living room and saw Michael sitting beside her daughter, she nearly fainted from shock. You're the debt collector? What did you do to my daughter?" she asked desperately, rushing to Emily. "Mom, calm down, he helped me," Emily said quickly. "He bought my medicine, stayed with me all day." Mrs. Margaret looked from Emily to Michael, completely bewildered. "I don't understand," she whispered. Michael stood up and introduced himself properly. "Mrs. Margaret, my name is Michael Crawford. I came here today to discuss the debt, but I found your daughter feeling unwell. I couldn't leave her alone," he explained. "And the debt?" Mrs. Margaret asked fearfully. "We can talk about that. But first, tell me, did you get the money?" The shoulders of the woman in her early 50s slumped. "I managed to get $200. I worked from 6 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon at 3 different houses. I'm exhausted," she said, sinking heavily into the armchair. "Mom, you didn't have to work yourself to death like this," Emily said, guilt in her voice. "Of course I did. I need to take care of you, protect our home." Mrs. Margaret began to cry. "Your father left us, but I'll never abandon you." Michael watched the scene, moved. The bond between mother and daughter was clear, as was the weight they both carried. Mrs. Margaret was a woman who had clearly been beautiful in her youth, but stress and overwork had taken their toll. "Mrs. Margaret, may I ask you a personal question?" Michael said. "Have you worked as a cleaner your whole life?" "No, I was a secretary at an accounting firm. I worked there for 15 years. But when my husband left and the bills started piling up, I needed something that paid daily. Cleaning pays right away," she explained. "And did you like your old job?" "I loved it. I had my co-workers, my desk. I knew how to do my work well. But I can't afford to wait for a paycheck at the end of the month. I need money every day to buy food." Mrs. Margaret wiped her eyes. Michael was starting to form a plan in his mind, but he needed more information. "Tell me something. If you didn't have this debt, could you support yourselves?" Mother and daughter exchanged glances. "If I could go back to teaching and Mom got a better job, yes. We could manage," Emily answered. "But with this debt, it's impossible. The little money we make barely covers the interest," Mrs. Margaret added. Michael was silent for a few minutes, thinking. Finally, he made a decision that would change all their lives. "I have a proposal for you," he said. "But first, I need to make a few calls." He stepped out into the small backyard and called a few contacts. First, he called his wife, Jennifer. "Michael, why didn't you come to dinner? Olivia is here. She wanted to see you," Jennifer said. "Honey, I'm in a complicated situation. I'll be late. Can you ask Olivia if she still knows anyone from the music school where she used to teach?" "What a strange question. I think so. Why?" "I'll explain later. It's important," he said. Next, he called his friend Jason, who worked at an accounting firm. "Jason, weren't you looking for a secretary?" "I am. Why? Do you know someone?" "Maybe. A woman with 15 years of experience, but she's been out of the field for a while. Could you give her a chance?" "Depends. Can she come in tomorrow to talk?" "I'll make it happen. I'll call you with details. Michael hung up. When he went back inside, mother and daughter looked at him expectantly. Mrs. Margaret, could you work tomorrow? I have 3 houses scheduled. Cancel them. I want you to go to a job interview for a secretary position. My friend needs someone with experience, Michael said. But sir, I can't miss work. I need the money, she protested. What if I guarantee you'll get this opportunity? How? Emily asked. I'll lend you the money you need to get by for a few days, no interest. And I'll talk to my boss about the debt, Michael said. But why? Mrs. Margaret was confused. You don't even know us. Because I found a family that deserves a second chance. And because maybe I need one too, he confessed. Michael explained his plan. He would lend $500 so they could go a few days without worrying about basic expenses. Mrs. Margaret would go to the interview, and he would try to convince his boss to renegotiate the debt in a more humane way. What if it doesn't work? Emily asked. It will. It has to, Michael said with a determination he didn't even know he had. That night, Michael came home late, but with a different feeling in his chest. Jennifer and Olivia were waiting for him in the kitchen. Dad, Mom told me you asked about the music school. Did something happen? Olivia asked, concerned. Michael told the whole story about Emily and Mrs. Margaret. Jennifer and Olivia were moved. Dad, that's amazing. You did something beautiful, Olivia said, hugging him. I haven't done anything yet, sweetheart. Tomorrow's when I'll find out if I can really help, he replied. Is Emily really a music teacher? Olivia asked. Yes, why? The school I used to go to needs a substitute teacher. The main one is on maternity leave. I can talk to the principal, Olivia offered. That would be perfect, Jennifer said. Michael, you're doing the right thing. The next morning, Michael had the toughest conversation of his career with Mr. Blackwell. Have you lost your mind, Michael? His boss shouted. 15 years working here, and now you come with this story about helping debtors. Boss, this situation is different. This family wants to pay. They just need a real chance, Michael argued. Every family wants to pay. This isn't a charity, it's a business. Mr. Blackwell slammed his fist on the desk. What if they get a better job? What if they have steady income to make monthly payments? $20,000 with interest, Michael. It's almost 30 now. How will they pay that? If we're flexible with the interest, it could work, Michael insisted. Flexible? Mr. Blackwell laughed sarcastically. You're getting too involved with debtors. That's dangerous. What's dangerous is squeezing people who can't pay. The family will collapse completely and we'll get nothing. Michael changed tactics. Mr. Blackwell thought for a few minutes. Fine, you have 1 week. If they don't start paying something significant, we'll take other measures, he said threateningly. Michael knew other measures meant methods he'd rather not think about. He left the office determined to make this work. First, he went to pick up Mrs. Margaret for her interview. He found her nervous, wearing her best clothes, which were still simple. Mr. Michael, it's been so long since I've done an interview. What if I don't get it? She said in the car. You will. My friend Jason is a good person. Just be yourself, he reassured her. The interview lasted an hour. When Mrs. Margaret came out of Jason's office, she was smiling. I got it. He said I can start Monday, she said excitedly. That's great. What's the salary? $1,500 a month plus benefits. It's almost double what I made as a cleaner. She was radiant. On the way back, Michael called Olivia. Sweetheart, did you talk to the school principal? I did, Dad. She wants to meet Emily. Can you take her there this afternoon? Olivia said eagerly. Perfect. And private lessons? Do you think she could get students? Absolutely. I can recommend plenty of people looking for a teacher. What does Emily teach? Piano mostly, but she seems to know music in general, Michael replied. When they arrived at the Wilson family's house, Emily looked much better. The medication had worked and she could walk normally. Mrs. Margaret got the job, Michael announced as soon as they walked in. Really? Emily shouted with joy and hugged her mother. And there's more. My daughter set up an interview for you at the school she used to attend. They need a music teacher, he finished. The two women exchanged skeptical glances. This seems too good to be true, Emily murmured. It's not. It's just the beginning. But you'll have to work very hard, Michael said seriously. That afternoon, Michael took Emily to the school. The principal, Mrs. Thompson, a woman in her 60s, was impressed by the young woman's knowledge. "You really know a lot about music. What's your background?" she asked. "I studied music in college, graduated 3 years ago. I worked at another school before I got sick," Emily explained. "Sick?" Mrs. Thompson looked concerned. Emily glanced at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. "I have a neurological condition that sometimes limits me, but with the right treatment I can work normally," she said honestly. "What kind of limitations?" "During moments of high stress, I can have episodes of temporary paralysis, but they're rare when I'm properly medicated and in a stable environment," Emily replied. Mrs. Thompson thought for a moment. "I appreciate your honesty. Here's what we'll do. You'll have a 1-month trial period. If everything goes well, we'll hire you permanently. The pay is $800 for part-time. Does that work?" "It does," Emily answered excitedly. On the way back, she was radiant. "Mr. Crawford, how can I thank you? In one day, we got 2 jobs. "Don't thank me yet. Now comes the hard part. Making it work," he said. That evening, the 3 families had dinner together for the first time. Michael brought Jennifer and Olivia to meet Emily and Mrs. Margaret. The women hit it off immediately. "Emily, could you give private lessons to some of my friends?" Olivia suggested. "Of course. How much do you think I should charge?" as Emily asked. $40 a lesson. I can get at least 5 students to start," Olivia calculated. Jennifer was talking to Mrs. Margaret about financial planning. "With both salaries, you'll have about $2,200 a month plus the private lessons. You can live comfortably and still have enough to pay off the debt," Jennifer figured. "If we can pay $500 a month toward the debt, how long would it take to settle it?" "Mrs. Margaret asked Michael. "It depends on the interest. I'll try to negotiate with my boss. If he agrees to lower interest and spread it over 5 years, you can manage it," Michael replied. 5 years is a long time," Emily sighed. "It's better than a lifetime," Jennifer said pragmatically. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following Monday, Mrs. Margaret started her new job. She was warmly welcomed by her co-workers and quickly adapted to the routine. Jason was impressed by her efficiency. "Michael, your recommendation was great. She works very well," he called to thank him. Emily also began at the school. The first few days were nerve-wracking, but she gradually gained confidence. The children loved her lessons, and she discovered a passion for teaching she never knew she had. "It's different from private lessons," she told Michael when he stopped by to visit. "With kids, I have to be more creative, more energetic. They inspire me." "And the episodes? How are they?" "Much better. The medication helps, but mostly it's having a routine, having hope for the future. It's amazing how that changes everything," Emily smiled. The private lessons also started taking off. Olivia had found 6 students, and more people began seeking Emily through word of mouth. "In a month, I'm making almost $1,000 just from private lessons," she said excitedly. "I can buy my own medication and still help Mom." But not everything was going as planned. Mr. Blackwell was growing impatient. "Michael, it's been a month and they've only paid $200 in," he complained. "They're getting organized. They need more time," Michael argued. "Time is money, and they owe us a lot of money." Mr. Blackwell was visibly irritated. "If we're too strict, they won't be able to pay anything. We'll lose everything." Michael tried to be rational. "Or maybe you're getting too involved with that family. You're losing objectivity," Mr. Blackwell insinuated. The accusation hit Michael hard because there was some truth to it. He really was getting involved. He visited the Wilsons almost every day, had dinner there on weekends, and had practically become part of the family. "That's not it," he protested, but without much conviction. "Then prove it. I want $500 next week or we'll handle this another way." Mr. Blackwell was firm. Michael left the office worried. He knew another way could mean threats, public humiliation, or even the Wilsons losing their home. That night he talked to Jennifer about the situation. "Michael, maybe it's time you thought about changing jobs," she suggested. "Change to what?" "This is all I've done for 15 years, he replied. "But it's not what you love doing." "It never was," Jennifer reminded him. You only stayed because you needed the money. And I still do. Olivia is finishing college. You just started working again. Olivia can do a paid internship. I can work more hours. We're not the desperate family we were 10 years ago, Jennifer said gently. But what about the Wilsons? If I leave now, my boss will destroy them, Michael worried. Maybe that's exactly why you need to leave. To protect them, Jennifer suggested. Michael grew thoughtful. He'd never considered quitting, but he was starting to see it might be necessary. The next day, he visited the Wilsons to tell them about Mr. Blackwell's pressure. Mr. Michael, we don't want you to lose your job because of us, Mrs. Margaret said anxiously. I won't lose it. I'm thinking of quitting, he said, surprising everyone. What do you mean? Emily asked. I can't take this job anymore. Spending my life collecting debts from people who are already at rock bottom. You all made me realize that, Michael confessed. But what will you do? Mrs. Margaret asked. I don't know yet. But I'll figure it out, he said with determination. That week, something unexpected happened. Emily had a minor episode at school. It wasn't serious, but she struggled to walk for a few hours. Mrs. Thompson called her in to talk. Emily, I can't have an employee who might suddenly become unable to work. What if this happens during a performance? Or if a child gets hurt because you can't move? The principal said coldly. Mrs. Thompson, this was an exception. My medication keeps it under control, Emily tried to argue. I'm sorry, but I need someone more reliable. I'll have to let you go. Mrs. Thompson was unmoved. Emily went home devastated. Losing her job just as things were improving was a hard blow. It's my fault, she cried to her mother. If I didn't have this cursed illness. Don't talk like that, sweetheart. We'll figure something out. Mrs. Margaret tried to comfort her, but both knew losing $800 a month was a serious problem. With only Mrs. Margaret's salary and private lessons, they wouldn't be able to pay the debt and make ends meet. When Michael found out, he was furious. That's discrimination, he said indignantly. It's no use, Mr. Michael. She has the right to fire anyone she wants, Emily replied resignedly. We have to find another solution, he said firmly. That's when Jennifer had an idea. Why don't you start a music school at home, she suggested. What do you mean? Emily asked. You already have some private students. You could have more, and you could offer group classes, which are cheaper for the students and bring in more for you, Jennifer explained. But our house is small, Mrs. Margaret said. We can make it work. The important thing is to start, Michael said, excited about the idea. They spent the weekend planning. With a few adjustments to the house, rearranging furniture, and creating a suitable space for lessons, they could accommodate groups of up to 6 students. I can promote it on social media, Olivia offered. I have lots of contacts with young people who want to learn music. And I can help with the administrative side, organizing schedules, payments, Mrs. Margaret said. Emily was thrilled at the prospect. I could teach piano, guitar, music theory. I've always wanted to have my own school, she dreamed aloud. Then let's make it happen, Michael said. But Mr. Blackwell was growing more impatient by the day. Michael, this nonsense has gone too far, he shouted the following Monday. They paid $250 this month, $250, out of a $30,000 debt. They lost a source of income, but they're getting back on their feet, Michael tried to explain. I don't care. Either they pay $500 by next week or I'll send Big Tony to handle it, Mr. Blackwell threatened. Big Tony was the company's special debt collector, a large, intimidating man who used methods Michael preferred not to know in detail. Boss, give me one more week. Just one, Michael pleaded. 1 week, and they'd better have the money, Mr. Blackwell said firmly. Michael left the office knowing he'd reached his limit. He could no longer protect the Wilsons and keep his job. It was time to make a final decision. That night, he talked at length with Jennifer and Olivia. Dad, if this is what you want, we have to support you, Olivia said. I'll get a paid internship to help out at home. And I can pick up extra part-time work, Jennifer added. Are you sure? Michael asked. Absolutely. You can't stay in that job. It's not good for you, and now it's putting the Wilsons at risk, Jennifer said plainly. The next morning, Michael wrote his resignation letter. 15 years of his career came to an end. Mr. Blackwell was surprised and furious. "You're crazy, throwing everything away for a family of debtors," he roared. "It's not for them, it's for me. I can't take this job anymore," Michael said calmly. "Fine, but know this, now they're Big Tony's problem, and he won't be as patient as you," Mr. Blackwell threatened. "They're honest people trying to rebuild their lives. They don't deserve to be intimidated," Michael said. "Honest? They owe $30,000. Mr. Blackwell laughed sarcastically. "A debt taken on by their father, who abandoned the family. They're trying to pay it back," Michael defended. "I don't care. A debt is a debt." Mr. Blackwell ended the conversation. Michael left the office with a strange feeling. On one hand, he felt relief at leaving a job he could no longer stand. On the other, he was worried about the future, both his and the Wilsons. First, he went to tell the women what had happened. "You quit because of us?" Emily asked, horrified. "I quit because I needed to leave that job years ago." "You just gave me the courage to do what I should have done long ago," he explained. "But now what? What's going to happen to us?" Mrs. Margaret asked fearfully. "We'll face it together. The music school will work out, I'm sure," Michael said with forced optimism. "And you, what will you do?" Emily asked. "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out," he replied. The next few days were intense. They transformed the Wilsons' living room into a small music studio. Michael used his savings to buy a used guitar and some sheet music. Olivia helped spread the word on social media. The response was better than they expected. Within a week, Emily already had 10 regular students and 3 group classes scheduled. "It's working," she said excitedly. "This month I'll make over $1,500. But the joy was short-lived. On Friday, Big Tony showed up at the door. He was a huge man, over 6 feet tall, with arms like tree trunks. His presence filled the entire entrance of the small house. "Where are the Wilsons?" he asked in a deep voice. Emily was teaching 2 children when she heard the threatening tone. Immediately, she felt the familiar tightness in her chest that signaled one of her episodes. "No, not now," she murmured to herself, trying to stay calm. "It's me." Mrs. Margaret stepped forward, trying to sound brave. "You owe $30,000. Here to pay up?" Big Tony asked bluntly. "We're paying in installments. Every month we give what we can," Mrs. Margaret explained. "Installments?" Big Tony laughed menacingly. "Who said you could pay in installments?" Mr. Crawford said. "Crawford doesn't work for us anymore. Now you deal with me," he interrupted. Emily felt her legs begin to weaken. The 2 children, sensing something was wrong, stopped playing the piano. "Teacher, what's happening?" one asked. "You can go home for today. Tell your parents the lesson is cancelled," Emily said, her voice trembling. The children ran off, frightened by Big Tony's presence. "Look what you did, ruined my collection," he said sarcastically. "How much do you have?" "We have $400, Mrs. Margaret said. $400 out of 30,000? You're joking, right?" Big Tony stepped closer threateningly. That's when Emily collapsed. Her legs could no longer hold her up, and she sank heavily to the floor. "My daughter," Mrs. Margaret rushed to help her. "What's wrong with her?" Big Tony asked, confused. "She has a condition. When she gets nervous, she can't move," Mrs. Margaret explained, helping Emily lean against the wall. "A condition? What condition?" Big Tony seemed genuinely concerned. "Psychosomatic paralysis. Stress makes her lose control of her movements," Mrs. Margaret explained. Big Tony fell silent for a moment, watching Emily struggle uselessly to move her legs. "She's not faking?" he asked. "How could anyone fake something like this?" Mrs. Margaret replied indignantly. The big man crouched in front of Emily. "Miss, can you speak?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Yes," Emily replied with difficulty. "I just can't move." "How long does this last?" "It depends. Sometimes hours, sometimes days," she said, tears streaming down her face. Big Tony stood up, thoughtful. To Mrs. Margaret's surprise, he put away his folder of documents. "You have 1 week to come up with at least $1,000. If you don't, I'll have to take action," he said, but without his earlier aggression. $1,000? Mrs. Margaret asked. "Where are we supposed to get $1,000? "Not my problem. It's yours," Big Tony replied and left. After he was gone, Mrs. Margaret helped Emily to the couch. "Sweetheart, what are we going to do? We don't have $1,000, she said desperately. "I don't know, Mom. I don't know," Emily cried. They called Michael Crawford, who came right away. "That animal came here to intimidate you?" he asked angrily. "He wasn't that bad," Emily said. "When he saw I was sick, he seemed uneasy. But he demanded $1,000 in a week. We don't have that kind of money," Mrs. Margaret added. Michael grew thoughtful. "I'll talk to him," he decided. "Michael, don't. You don't work there anymore. It could be dangerous," Jennifer advised. "I can't let them suffer threats because of me," he insisted. On Monday, Michael went to Mr. Blackwell's office. Big Tony was there, filing reports on the weekend's collections. "Michael, what are you doing here?" Mr. Blackwell asked, surprised. "I came to talk about the Wilsons," he said directly. "It's not your problem anymore," Mr. Blackwell replied. "Yes, it is. They're in this situation because of me. If I hadn't given them hope, they might have figured something else out," Michael argued. "Hope?" Big Tony cut in. "Boss, that girl is sick. Really sick." "So what?" Mr. Blackwell asked impatiently. "It doesn't seem right to collect a debt from someone who's sick, especially a debt she didn't even make," Big Tony said, surprising everyone. "Since when do you have a conscience, Big Tony?" Mr. Blackwell laughed. "Always had one. Just never ran into a situation like this," Big Tony defended himself. Michael saw an opportunity. "Big Tony, tell him how you found them," he urged. "The girl was giving music lessons to some kids. When she saw me, she got so nervous she couldn't even walk. Had to send the kids home," Big Tony recounted. "So what?" Mr. Blackwell pressed. "So they're trying to work, boss. They're not deadbeats. The daughter teaches music. The mom works as a secretary. They're doing their best," Big Tony said. "But they owe $30,000, Mr. Blackwell shouted. "A debt made by the father who abandoned them," Michael added. Mr. Blackwell fell silent for a few minutes. "Fine. I'll make one last offer. They pay $10,000 up front and I'll forgive the rest," he said. $10,000? They don't have $10,000, Michael protested. "Then it's not my problem." "Big Tony, you know what to do," Mr. Blackwell ended the conversation. Michael left the office more worried than before. $10,000 was an impossible amount for the Wilsons to come up with quickly. That night, he had a difficult talk with Jennifer. "Honey, I have an idea, but I need your approval," he began. "Go on," Jennifer said. "We could borrow $10,000 from the bank using our house as collateral. I'll pay off the Wilsons' debt, and they can pay me back little by little," Michael suggested. "Michael, that's too risky. What if they can't pay? We could lose our house," Jennifer worried. "They won't. You've seen how hard they work, how they push themselves. They'll manage," he insisted. "What if Emily's condition gets worse? What if she can't work anymore?" Jennifer asked. "Jennifer, then we'll find another solution. But I can't let them be harassed over a debt they didn't even make," Michael was determined. "Olivia, what do you think?" Jennifer asked their daughter. "I think Dad's right. The Wilsons are good people, and if we don't help them now, they could lose everything," Olivia said. "All right, but on one condition. We do this properly, with a contract, deadlines, everything. No handshake deals," Jennifer agreed. "Of course. I'll see a lawyer first thing tomorrow," Michael said, relieved. The next day, Michael met with a lawyer he knew, Mr. Harrison, who prepared all the necessary paperwork. The bank loan was approved quickly since Michael's house was sufficient collateral. When he arrived at the Wilsons' house with the news, he found Emily teaching a group of 5 teenagers. She had recovered from her episode and was in good spirits again. "Mr. Michael," she said as soon as the lesson ended, "I got 3 new students. This week I'll make $600 just from lessons." "That's wonderful, Emily. But I have even better news," he said, showing the documents. "I got the money to pay off your debt with Mr. Blackwell." Mother and daughter were stunned. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Margaret asked. "I took out a loan from the bank." "You can pay me back little by little, no rush and no crazy interest rates," Michael explained. "But Mr. Crawford, that's so much money. How will we ever manage to pay it back?" Emily worried. "Slow and steady. With both of your jobs, you can pay $200 a month. In 4 years, it'll be settled," he calculated. 4 years, Mrs. Margaret murmured. "Feels like an eternity." "Better than a lifetime of threats," Michael said. But what if I have a bad episode? What if I can't work anymore? Emily asked. We'll cross that bridge if we get there. For now, you're doing well, working, earning money. Let's trust it'll stay that way, he reassured her. That afternoon, they went together to Mr. Blackwell's office. Michael handed over the $10,000 and took the debt clearance document. Can't believe you did this, Mr. Blackwell said. Lost your job and still spent your money on debtors. I didn't spend it, I lent it, they'll pay me back, Michael replied. If you say so, Mr. Blackwell shook his head. Big Tony, you can forget about this debt. It's settled. Good, Big Tony muttered. Never liked bothering them anyway. When they left the office, Emily started crying. Why the tears? Michael asked, concerned. Tears of joy. For the first time in 2 years, I can sleep without fear of someone banging on the door to throw us out, she said emotionally. Mrs. Margaret was moved too. Mr. Crawford, how can we ever repay what you've done for us? She asked. You already are. You helped me realize I can do something better with my life, he answered. In the following months, their lives changed completely. Emily got more students and turned their home into a small, well-known music school in the neighborhood. Mrs. Margaret was promoted at work and started earning $1,600. Michael, after much searching, landed a job as a financial consultant at a small business support firm. He earned less than he had as a debt collector, but was far happier. Funny, he remarked to Jennifer. I spend my days helping people organize their finances, get out of debt, the opposite of what I used to do. And you like it? She asked. Very much. Every family I help reminds me of the Wilsons. It's rewarding to see people rebuild their lives, he said with satisfaction. The Wilsons never missed a payment. Every month, without fail, they deposited $200 into Michael's account, sometimes a bit more when they had extra income. In 3 years, we've already paid half, Emily celebrated during dinner at the Crawfords. You two are remarkable, Jennifer praised. I've never seen such dedication. It's the least we can do, Mrs. Margaret said. Mr. Crawford gave us our lives back. A year later, something unexpected happened. One of Emily's students, the son of a local businessman, was preparing for a youth talent competition. Emily had been training him intensively. Teacher, if I win, I'll tell everyone it was thanks to you, the boy said. Just trying is already a victory, Emily replied humbly. The boy not only won, but made sure to thank his teacher publicly. The performance was filmed and shared on social media. Within days, Emily became a local celebrity. Dozens of people signed up for her lessons. I can't take everyone, she told her mother, showing the waiting list. Then maybe it's time to think bigger, Mrs. Margaret suggested. How so? We could rent a bigger space, hire other teachers, start a real music school, her mother explained. The idea excited Emily, but also scared her. Mum, that's so much work. What if I have a bad episode? She worried. Your episodes are much better controlled now, and even if you have one, we'll have other teachers to help, Mrs. Margaret argued. They discussed the possibility with Michael Crawford. It's a great idea, he said excitedly. I can help with the financial side, put together a business plan. But we'll need money to rent a place, buy instruments, Emily thought about the challenges. One step at a time. First, let's see how much you can invest, Michael suggested. They spent weeks planning. With the savings Emily had managed to set aside and a small bank loan, it would be possible to start something modest. I found the perfect space, Mrs. Margaret announced after days of searching. It's 3 small rooms downtown. The rent fits our budget. And I already have 2 college friends interested in teaching, Emily added. One for guitar, another for voice. Within 6 months, the Hope Music School was up and running. The name had been Michael's idea, a reminder that hope was what kept them all together during tough times. The school was an immediate success. Beyond Emily's existing students, many more came. Soon, she had to hire 2 more teachers. Emily, you've become a businesswoman, Michael teased during the official opening. I never thought this was possible, she replied, emotional. 2 years ago, I couldn't even leave the house. The school brought a significant change in the Wilsons' income. Emily started earning nearly $3,000 a month between her own lessons and the percentage she received from other teachers. I want to pay off our debt to you faster, she told Michael. No need to rush, he replied. "But I do, you deserve it," she insisted. They began paying $400 a month instead of $200. In 2 years, the debt would be settled. But it was during this time that something happened to change everything again. Mrs. Margaret started experiencing back pain and extreme fatigue. At first, she blamed it on the school's demanding workload. "Mum, you need to see a doctor," Emily insisted. "It's just exhaustion, dear. I'll get better." Mrs. Margaret resisted. But the pain worsened. Finally, she agreed to some tests. The results were devastating. She had a serious spinal issue requiring surgery and months of recovery. "The doctor said I can't work for 3 months," she told Emily, tears in her eyes. "It's okay, Mom, the school is doing well, I can support us," Emily tried to reassure her. "But what about the payments to Mr. Crawford?" Mrs. Margaret worried. "We'll talk to him. I'm sure he'll understand," Emily said. When they heard the news, Michael and Jennifer immediately visited Mrs. Margaret. "Don't even think about the payments right now," Michael said. "What matters is you taking care of yourself." "But Mr. Crawford, we had an agreement," Mrs. Margaret protested. "Agreements are for when people are able. Right now you're not. When you're better, we'll talk again," he said firmly. "I'll pay everything as soon as I can," she insisted. "I know you will. I trust you," Michael smiled. Mrs. Margaret's surgery was successful, but recovery was slow and difficult. For 3 months, she stayed home relying on Emily's care. It was a challenging time for both. Emily split her time between the school and her mother. Sometimes, the stress triggered minor episodes, but nothing like before. "See how much better you are now?" Mrs. Margaret remarked after a mild episode. "Before, something like this would leave you paralyzed for days." "It's true," Emily admitted. "Having a goal, people depending on me, that gives me the strength to better control my illness." During my mother's recovery, something special happened. One of the teachers at the school, Jason, a 30-year-old man who taught guitar, started showing interest in Emily. "Emily, can I ask you something?" he said after a teachers' meeting. "Of course," she replied. "Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" he asked nervously. Emily was surprised. It had been so long since she'd thought about relationships that she didn't even know how to react. "Jason, I have a complicated medical condition. I don't know if—" she began. "I know about your illness, and I don't mind. You're an amazing person, regardless of that," he interrupted. "I need to think," she said. "Of course, no pressure," Jason smiled. That night, Emily talked to her mother about the invitation. "Dear, do you like him?" Mrs. Margaret asked. "I do. He's kind, smart, and works well with the children," Emily admitted. "Then why are you hesitating?" "What if I have an episode in front of him? What if he can't handle it?" Emily worried. "Dear, you can't stop living out of fear of what might happen. If he's a good man, he'll understand and accept you," Mrs. Margaret advised. "You think so?" Emily asked uncertainly. "I'm sure of it, and if he doesn't accept you, then he wasn't worth it anyway," her mother said wisely. A week later, Emily accepted Jason's invitation. They went to dinner at a simple restaurant downtown. She was nervous but determined to give happiness a chance. "Relax," Jason said, noticing her tension. "We're just 2 friends having dinner." "Sorry, it's been so long since I've gone out like this," she confessed. "How long?" he asked gently. "Since before I got sick. About 3 years," Emily replied. "Then let's take it slow. No pressure, no expectations. Just enjoying each other's company," Jason reassured her. The dinner went better than Emily expected. Jason was funny, attentive, and spoke about music with the same passion she had. They didn't bring up her illness, but she knew he was aware of it. "I really enjoyed tonight," she said, when he dropped her off at home. "Me too. Can we do it again?" he asked. "We can," she smiled. Over the next few months, Emily and Jason grew closer. He learned more about her story, understood her limitations, and never made her feel different or incapable. "You know what I admire most about you?" he said during a walk in the park. "What?" she asked. "Your strength. You've been through so much and still managed to build something beautiful, to help others," he said sincerely. "I don't feel strong. Honestly, I feel fragile most of the time," Emily confessed. Strength isn't about not feeling fear or not having struggles. Strength is facing all of that and still fighting on. Jason hugged her. It was the first time Emily felt truly understood by a man. Jason didn't try to fix her or ignore her condition. He simply accepted her as she was. 6 months after their first date, they made their relationship official. Michael and Jennifer were happy with the news. "He's a good man," Michael said after getting to know Jason better. "He sees beyond Emily's illness." "That's exactly what she needed," Jennifer agreed. The school continued to grow. With Mrs. Margaret recovered and helping with administration again, they were able to expand into another room. Now they offered piano, guitar, singing, music theory, and even wind instrument classes. "We need more teachers," Emily said during a family meeting. "And more space," Mrs. Margaret added. "We have waiting lists for almost every course." "Maybe it's time to think about our own place," Jason suggested. "Paying rent forever isn't worth it." The idea of buying a property seemed too ambitious, but Michael encouraged them to look into it. "Let's see what you can get financed. Maybe it's more feasible than you think," he said. After a long search, they found an old house downtown that would be perfect for a music school. It had 6 large rooms, a spacious backyard, and was being sold at a reasonable price. "It's perfect," Emily said during the first visit. "We can turn each room into a classroom. And the backyard can be used for outdoor performances," Jason added. "But it's a big investment," Mrs. Margaret worried. "Big, but doable," Michael said after crunching the numbers. "With the school's current income, you can get it financed." The purchase of the house was another milestone in the Wilson family's life. For the first time, they would have something truly their own, built through their own hard work. "Mom, we did it," Emily said tearfully on the day they signed the contract. "Who would have thought we'd come this far?" Mrs. Margaret replied, her eyes glistening. Moving into their own home brought even more success to the school. The extra space allowed them to offer more courses and take in more students. In no time, the Hope Music School became the talk of the town. "Emily, you have a gift for teaching," a parent remarked after a student recital. "My son has never been so dedicated to anything. She sees the potential in every child," Jason added proudly. It was during one of these recitals that something special happened. Michael was in the audience when he saw Mr. Blackwell and Big Tony walk into the makeshift auditorium in the backyard. "What are they doing here?" Jennifer asked nervously. "I don't know," Michael replied, tense. After the performance, Mr. Blackwell approached Emily. "Are you the teacher everyone's talking about?" he asked. "I'm Emily Wilson," she answered cautiously, recognizing him. "My grandson wants to learn piano. I hear you're the best in town," he said. Emily glanced at Michael, confused. "Mr. Blackwell, what do you really want?" Michael stepped forward. "I want to enroll my grandson." "I'm serious," Mr. Blackwell said, "and I want to apologize for everything I did to you." "Apologize?" Emily asked, surprised. "I've seen how you've risen up, how you built all this despite every obstacle. It's admirable," he admitted. "What about you, Big Tony?" Michael asked his former associate. "I came to apologize too, and to ask if you need security for the school. I can watch over your property," Big Tony offered. "Security?" Mrs. Margaret asked. "The school is growing. You've got expensive equipment. It'd be good to have someone keeping an eye out," Big Tony explained. Emily looked at her mother and Michael before responding. "We can talk about it," she said diplomatically. That night they discussed the unexpected proposal. "Can we really trust them?" Mrs. Margaret asked. "I think so," Michael said. "Blackwell was always tough in business, but never dishonest. And Big Tony showed he had a conscience when he met you. This could be a chance to turn old enemies into allies," Jason mused. A week later, Mr. Blackwell's grandson started piano lessons with Emily. He was an 8-year-old boy, shy but talented. "Grandpa said the teacher is special," he mentioned in his first lesson. "What do you think?" Emily asked with a smile. "I think he's right," the boy replied after playing a few scales. Big Tony also began working as the school's security guard. His intimidating presence discouraged any vandalism or theft, but with the kids, he was surprisingly gentle. "Uncle Tony," the children would shout when they saw him. "How can such a big man be so sweet with kids?" Jennifer remarked to Michael. "People are complicated." "Maybe he just needed an opportunity to show his good side," Michael replied. 2 years had passed since the purchase of the house. The school was well established, with over 100 regular students and a constantly full waiting list. Emily had become a minor local celebrity, invited to give talks about music education and personal growth. Emily, the city wants to create a music program in public schools. They're interested in you to coordinate it, Michael shared after speaking with contacts in the municipal administration. Really? She asked excitedly. It would be extra work, well paid, and you could bring music to kids who can't afford private lessons, he explained. It's an amazing opportunity, Jason said. But can I handle it? With the school, the city's project, Emily worried. You have a great team here. And I can help with the administrative side, Mrs. Margaret offered. Let's take it slow. First, I'll talk to them and understand what they really want, Emily decided. The meeting at City Hall went better than she expected. The education secretary had an ambitious plan to bring music education to every public school in the district. We want you to train other teachers, develop a suitable curriculum, and oversee the implementation, he explained. How many schools? Emily asked. 23 in total. It would be a 2-year commitment with the possibility of renewal, the secretary said. And the pay? She asked timidly. $5,000 a month on top of your earnings from the private school, he replied. Emily nearly fainted. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of making. I need to talk to my family, she said. Of course, but don't take too long. We want to start next semester, the secretary said. That evening there was a celebration at the Wilson house. Michael, Jennifer, Olivia, Jason, and even Big Tony and Mr. Blackwell were there. A toast to our Emily. Michael raised his glass. From a young woman paralyzed by fear to an educator recognized by the whole city. Cheers, everyone shouted together. I want to say something, Emily spoke up. None of this would have been possible without each of you. Mr. Crawford, who risked everything to help us. Mom, who never gave up on me. Jason, who showed me I could be loved. Jennifer and Olivia, who welcomed us like family. And even Blackwell and Big Tony, who gave us the chance to turn pain into forgiveness. Stop, you'll make me cry, Mrs. Margaret said, emotional. Go ahead and cry, Michael said. They're tears of joy. And I have something to say too, Jason stood up nervously. Everyone looked at him curiously. Emily, these 2 years by your side have been the best of my life. You taught me that true love doesn't see flaws, it only sees the person we love. He knelt and pulled a small box from his pocket. Jason, Emily gasped. Emily Wilson, will you marry me? He asked, his voice trembling. Silence filled the room for a few seconds before Emily burst into happy tears. Yes, of course, yes, she cried. The house erupted in celebration. Hugs, tears, and laughter blended into an impromptu party that lasted late into the night. My daughter is getting married, Mrs. Margaret murmured to Michael. 2 years ago, I thought she'd never have a normal life. And look at what she's built, Michael replied, moved. Mr. Crawford, Emily approached him, I want to ask you something. Anything, he said. Will you walk me down the aisle? She asked. Michael was too emotional to speak. He simply hugged her tightly, feeling this was one of the greatest honors of his life. It would be a privilege, he whispered. The wedding was set for 6 months later. It would be a simple ceremony, but full of meaning. During the preparations, something happened that closed an important chapter. Emily finally settled her debt with Michael. Mr. Crawford, today is a special day, she said, handing him an envelope. This is the final payment. Emily, you didn't have to, he began. Oh, but I did. It was a matter of honor, she interrupted. 4 years of paying religiously, just as we promised. You've been exemplary, never missed a single payment, Michael said proudly. And now we're truly free, Mrs. Margaret added. Our own home, a thriving business, debts paid off. And a wedding ahead, Jason finished with a smile. The wedding day was perfect. The ceremony took place in the backyard of the music school, decorated with simple yet beautiful flowers. Michael, visibly moved, walked Emily down the aisle where Jason waited, beaming. Family and friends, the pastor began. We're here today, not just to celebrate the union of Emily and Jason, but also a story of resilience, love, and second chances. Throughout the ceremony, no one could hold back their emotions. It was impossible not to remember how it all began, with a young woman paralyzed on the floor of a modest home and a debt collector who chose to help instead of collect. "Emily," Jason said during his vows, "you've taught me that true strength isn't about never falling, but always getting back up. I promise to stand by you through every stumble and every victory." "Jason," Emily replied, tears in her eyes, "you showed me I deserve to be loved exactly as I am. I promise to share all my dreams and all my fears with you." After the ceremony, during the reception, Michael was called to give a speech. "4 years ago," he began, "I was just a debt collector doing my job. I walked into that house expecting to collect money and walked out with something far more valuable: a family. Emily and Mrs. Margaret didn't just repay their financial debt, they repaid me with a life lesson I'll never forget. They taught me that sometimes what seems like an ending is just the beginning of something much greater." "Speech! Speech!" the guests cheered. "Thank you, Mr. Crawford," Emily said, moved, "for believing in us when even we didn't believe in ourselves." The celebration lasted late into the night, with live music played by the school's own teachers. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a celebration of the entire journey that had brought them there. 3 months after the wedding, Emily officially began her project with the city. Her first task was training 23 public school teachers to implement music education in schools. "I want you all to understand," she told them in their first meeting, "that music isn't a privilege for those with money. It's every child's right. Our job is to democratize access to art." The project was a success from the start. Within 6 months, over 2,000 children were taking music lessons in public schools. Emily organized joint performances, created a municipal choir, and even formed a small orchestra with the most advanced students. "Emily, the press wants to do a story on the project," the education secretary informed her. "What kind of story?" she asked. "About how you've revolutionized music education in the city. They want to tell your personal story too," he explained. "I'm not sure I want the exposure," Emily hesitated. "It could inspire others," Jason encouraged her. "Your story might help someone going through hard times." After much thought, Emily agreed to the interview. The feature aired on a Tuesday evening on the region's main news program. A young woman who nearly lost everything to a neurological disorder is now responsible for bringing music to thousands of children, the reporter narrated as footage of the school and public music classes played on screen. The article told the whole story: the illness, the father's abandonment, the financial struggles, Michael's arrival, the transformation of their lives, and finally the success of the music school and the municipal project. "For those going through hardships, what would your advice be?" the reporter asked. "To never give up," Emily answered, looking straight at the camera. "I spent 2 years thinking my life was over. Today I see it was just beginning. Sometimes what seems like our end is just God preparing our fresh start." The impact of the story was immense. Emily received hundreds of messages from people all over the country, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Many asked for advice, while others simply thanked her for the inspiration. "Look at this message." She showed Jason a letter that had arrived in the mail. "It's from a mother in Sao Paulo who has a son with cerebral palsy. She says our story gave her hope." "You've become a symbol," Jason said proudly. "I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to keep helping people through music," Emily replied humbly. But the recognition brought new opportunities. Emily was invited to give talks in other cities, educational consultants sought her expertise, and even a publisher expressed interest in her biography. "It's a lot all at once," she confessed to Mrs. Margaret. "Sometimes I feel overwhelmed." "Sweetheart, you don't have to accept everything. Choose what truly makes sense for you," her mother advised. "You're right. My priority is the school and the city project. The rest is just a bonus," Emily decided. 2 years later, the municipal project was well established and had become a model for other cities. The private school had expanded again and now operated in 2 shifts to meet demand. "Emily, we have an interesting proposal," Jason said one evening when he got home. "What kind of proposal?" she asked. "The state university wants you to coordinate an extension course in music education. It would be weekend work, but well paid," he explained. "State university?" Emily was impressed. They want to train teachers in your teaching methods. Educators from all over the state would come to learn from you, Jason continued. It's a big responsibility, she reflected. But it's also a chance to multiply your impact even more, he argued. That night, during family dinner, they discussed the proposal. What do you all think? Emily asked. I think you should accept, Michael said. Your experience could help teachers in dozens of cities. But can I handle it? The school, the city project, the university, she worried. You have an excellent team, Mrs. Margaret reminded her. And you can start slow, see how it feels. Let's try, Emily decided. If it's too much, I can always reconsider. The university course was another success. Teachers from across the state came on weekends to learn the methods Emily had developed. Many were impressed not just by the techniques, but by the story behind them. Professor Emily, one student said at the end of a session, your journey is as inspiring as your teaching methods. What strikes me most is how she turned trauma into motivation, another added. Every hardship I faced taught me something about teaching, Emily replied. The empathy I developed through my own struggles helps me understand my students' limitations. 5 years had passed since the wedding. Emily and Jason were thinking about having children, but one fear haunted her. What if I pass the illness to our child? She confessed to her husband. The doctors said it's not hereditary, Jason reminded her. They said there might be a genetic component, she murmured. What if the child inherits my anxiety? She worried. Then we teach the child to handle it just like you learned, he replied tenderly. You're proof that it's possible to live a full life even with limitations. You're right, she sighed. Maybe it's time to stop fearing what might happen and start living what is happening. Exactly. And besides, our child would have the best teachers in the world. You for music and me for guitar, Jason joked. 3 months later, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news brought a mix of joy and anxiety, but mostly hope. I'm going to be a grandma, Mrs. Margaret shouted with joy when she found out. And I'll be the honorary grandpa, Michael teased, since Emily considered him like a father. Emily's pregnancy was closely monitored by doctors because of her neurological condition. Fortunately, she went through all 9 months without any significant episodes. The doctor said pregnancy might have stabilized my nervous system, she told the family. It seems the hormones are helping me. Your body is telling you it's ready to be a mother, Jennifer said affectionately. Nathan was born on a spring morning, healthy and perfect. When Emily held him for the first time, all her worries melted away. Look at you, Nathan, she whispered to the baby. You were born into a family that knows the value of fighting for dreams. We'll teach you to never give up. Nathan's birth brought even more joy to the whole extended family. Michael and Jennifer acted like doting grandparents. Mrs. Margaret beamed with pride, and even Big Tony softened when he met the baby. Uncle Tony's gonna take good care of you, the big man told little Nathan. No one's gonna mess with this boy. With her son's arrival, Emily decided to cut back on her commitments to focus more on motherhood. I'll keep the school and the city project, but I'll pause the lectures and the university course for now, she announced. That's the right decision, Jason supported. Nathan needs his mother present in these early years, and besides, you've already planted so many seeds that they'll keep growing even with you stepping back, Michael mused. 2 years later, when Nathan was toddling around and babbling his first words, something surprising happened. The boy showed a natural attraction to music. Look at this, Emily laughed, watching Nathan tap the piano keys rhythmically. Seems he inherited something good. And look at his coordination, Jason observed. He's using both hands. 2 years old and already has better rhythm than some of my teenage students, Emily joked. When Nathan turned 3, they discovered he had perfect pitch, a rare ability to identify musical notes without reference. This is extraordinary, a music professor from the university said after testing him. 1 in 1,000 children is born with this gift. What does it mean? Emily asked. That if he chooses a musical career, he has enormous potential, the professor explained. But we won't push him, Jason said. If he wants music, great. If not, that's fine too. Exactly, Emily agreed. We want him to choose his own path. That same year, the music school celebrated its 10th anniversary. To mark the occasion, they held a big concert with all current students and many alumni who returned to honor Emily. 10 years ago, Michael said during the ceremony, a sick young woman and a desperate mother thought they'd lost everything. Today, that same young woman has brought music to thousands. That's what I call the miracle of hard work and persistence. A real miracle, Mr. Blackwell remarked from the audience. My grandson's up there playing piano because of her. Mr. Blackwell's grandson, now 14 years old, performed a complex piece by Chopin. When he finished, he received a standing ovation. It was my teacher, Emily, who discovered my talent, he said into the microphone. Before her, I didn't even know I loved music. And now he's preparing to take the entrance exam for music, Mr. Blackwell proudly announced to anyone who would listen. During the celebration, Emily took the stage for a final speech. When I opened this school, she began, I thought I was just trying to earn money to pay off a debt. Today, I realize I was building so much more than that. I was building a community, a family, a legacy. She looked out at the audience and saw the faces of people who had become important in her life, former students who were now professional musicians, parents who had become friends, teachers who had turned into partners. Every person here played a part in my healing, she continued. You taught me that I wasn't just a sick person who needed care, but a teacher who had something valuable to offer. Speech, speech! The crowd cheered emotionally. I want to especially thank a few people, Emily said, tears beginning to form. My mother, Mrs. Margaret, who never gave up on me. My husband, Jason, who taught me how to love and be loved. My son, Nathan, who showed me that the future can be better than the past. She paused to wipe her eyes before continuing. And most of all, Mr. Crawford, who came into our home as a debt collector and left as a guardian angel. If it weren't for him, none of this would exist. The audience turned to Michael, who was flushed with emotion. He stood up and waved shyly. Mr. Crawford taught me that sometimes salvation comes from the person we least expect, Emily finished. He risked everything to help us, and today I can say it was worth it. It sure was, someone shouted from the crowd. Thank you all so much for these incredible 10 years. Here's to 10 more, Emily concluded to thunderous applause. After the performance, as everyone mingled in the schoolyard, Nathan walked over to the piano and began playing a simple yet beautiful melody. What is he playing? Jennifer asked. I don't know, Emily replied, surprised. Nathan, where did you learn that song? I didn't learn it, Mom. It was in my head, the 3-year-old answered naturally. Everyone stopped to listen. The melody was truly beautiful, melancholic yet hopeful at the same time. He's composing, Jason murmured in disbelief. At 3 years old? Mrs. Margaret asked. It seems so, Emily said, recording on her phone. When Nathan finished, the small audience applauded, moved. What will you call this song, Nathan? Michael asked. The boy thought for a few seconds before answering, Happy Family Song. The end. So, what did you think of this story of overcoming and second chances? Let us know in the comments which moment moved you the most, and if you know someone who also turned their struggles into motivation. Do you believe love and persistence can truly change a person's destiny? We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories like this one.